Hello, my friend. Welcome to the lecture on investing styles. What we're going to be doing is actually exploring a few different definitions, and then as we do the definitions, we'll be bringing them together so you know how they relate to each other. This originally was going to be just some definitions that I was going to present to you, but I realized as I was writing this lecture that I could actually combine a few of them together so that it makes sense. I think in this way, it'll be easier for you to understand everything a little bit faster than normal. So we'll get straight into it and give you some overviews of these different investing styles. So the three main concepts that we're going to be exploring here are the differences between the words alpha and beta, the difference between active and passive investing, and the difference between medium and long-term investing. As we cover these three different points, you'll see how they all come together naturally. So we'll start with alpha and beta. Alpha being the amount of return that you receive above and beyond a benchmark, and beta being the amount of correlation and volatility that you have relative to a benchmark. So alpha and beta, the unofficial definitions, or how I would describe them. No, this isn't some game or red pill thing. Alpha and beta isn't the difference between two different types of men and how they approach their lives. No, this is financial speak. Alpha, I would define in an unofficial kind of term, being the return that an individual or a system can generate when you're trying to extract additional price information from the market or additional information, whatever it is, to get a better return, often that's uncorrelated as well to the asset that you're trying to extract this alpha from. It's one of the holy grails of alpha generation, and you hear this a lot, is where you're trying to produce an excess return while also having it uncorrelated to the market. Uncorrelated excess returns is really where the jewels are in the market. This is the beef. This is what everybody wants. This is the good stuff. And of course, if everybody wants it, that means it's the most rare and the most competitive. So keep that in mind as we explore the other definitions. So beta, on the other hand, the unofficial definition that I would describe it as the amount of extra performance that you'd get from an asset if you were just holding it and you're trying to get additional gains from that asset while it's still remaining somewhat correlated without necessarily using a whole shitload of leverage. You can kind of see where they start to come together. Alpha is more of a strategy. Beta is more of holding something that gives you approximately the same price behavior, but just slightly higher performance. So if you look at this chart that I've put on the screen here, you can see that this probably describes how beta works a little bit better than just me describing it with words. You can see that if you were to invest in something with high beta, being that with the orange line, you would want to buy high beta low and sell high beta high. This way you would maximize the amount of money that you make, and you can take advantage of low beta as well. So as the market declines, you would move into low beta assets. This is a way of changing your risk profile so that you're taking on the most amount of gains when the market is going up and reducing the amount of losses when the market goes down. And as you can see by the next chart, we have the orange line, which represents what Bitcoin would look like if it was high beta. This particular example is kind of cheating because it is a high leveraged index. So that means it's going to be highly correlated to Bitcoin, almost perfectly correlated, and it just moves up faster and down faster. You can see this on the chart. So moving on to the next set of definitions, we have the difference between active and passive investing. Active investing is where an individual or a system is actively working in the market to try and gain additional alpha. So here is where you have a whole bunch of rules or a whole bunch of strategies that you're trying to deploy, and it's actually a very labor and time intensive process. This is where you're trying to put additional work into the market in order to gain additional rewards. Active investing, by definition, of course, this is more along the lines of trading, or this is kind of like a trading activity, where you believe that you can exchange your time for additional performance out of the market. Now, a passive investing strategy, this is where you develop a technique or a thesis or some sort of rule set or a strategy or whatever, and generally it's very hands-off. So it's something that you sit back and you let run. Something you don't interact with very much. So you can see there's a big difference between active and passive strategies. You can kind of see here, we can start to relate the ideas towards alpha and beta. So alpha is definitely more of a active strategy, and beta is definitely more of a passive strategy, because these two complement each other very seriously. Now, let's move on to the final definition, which is the difference between medium and long-term investing. Medium term, I would classify as anything that is from several days onwards up to several months. And long-term, I would classify everything that's from several weeks up to several years. Now we've had a look at all of these separately, let's bring them together. You can see how they all relate together approximately. However, I think some visual aids will help us here a little bit more. So let's have a look at how we would combine alpha, active, and medium-term investing into a picture essentially. What you see on the screen here is what I would consider an active strategy. As you can see, there are little arrows on the screen that are going long, short, all the way along, all the way from a couple of days to a couple of weeks to several months. And you can see the blue line is actually representative of the performance of this strategy. As you can see, it's fairly uncorrelated to the underlying price index. So that means as Bitcoin goes up and down, the strategy will be moving in a different direction a lot of the time. So as you can see here, what we've done is really we've generated alpha, and it's an active strategy and it's operating over the medium-term time horizon. So this is what it looks like when you combine all of these different factors together. And this is one of the main investing styles that I advocate for. If an individual wants to get into alpha generation, it's quite complex. It involves a deep dive into crypto behavior, personal psychology and process systemization, the philosophy of high-level analysis, a deep dive into historical altcoin behavior, academic level token selection, sentiment cycles, Bitcoin's relationship and correlation to global stock markets, macroeconomic signaling, on-chain analysis and indicators, cross-asset correlation and use case examples, market value scoring, trend following strategies, profit capture, strategy and portfolio enhancement, systemization and quality rule creation, and price studies with statistical analysis. Whew. Now, obviously, this shows you that alpha generation is not a simple process. It's not as simple as just drawing pictures on a chart and thinking that your chart finger paintings are going to somehow magically produce extra returns that are uncorrelated to the market. It's a very competitive field, and it's going to require a lot of research. So on the screen now, what you see is an example of classic beta passive long-term investing, which is simply applying a little bit of leverage to the index. Now we have Bitcoin price index here, and we have the orange line, which represents a leveraged version of Bitcoin. As you can see here, when Bitcoin goes up, the leveraged index goes up faster, and when it goes down, the leveraged index goes down faster as well. This means getting the direction of the market correct is incredibly important. This next image is an example of strategic beta, passive, and long-term factor investing. So this, I couldn't find a good example in the crypto market. However, this same philosophy applies to the crypto market, just depending on how deeply you do your research. You can see here in the world of stocks, we have the world index in red, but we also have all the different factors that we can use to increase our beta, which is high dividend, minimum vol, momentum, quality, value, and small cap. Using any one of these different factors in the right market environment can increase your beta as a passive strategy without having to worry too much about the alpha generation process. You simply have a rule set and you apply that to the different assets in the market. You select them and then you hold them for the long term. This is a type of investing that I believe has a lot of potential in the future. Bitcoin dominates most of the flows in the market. However, during the right market environments, when certain narratives are propping up, like decentralized finance and things like this, it would be worthwhile diving into these different factors so that you can get the best exposure to the market. However, that takes a bit of foresight, a bit of extra analysis, and if that's something you want to chase, that's on you. My professional observation is that passive investing is quite easy, and it's the one that most people should begin at. Experienced investors often zoom in from passive and the large-scale kind of investing and then zoom in. And they find the best risk to reward profile, the best return for their effort profile, somewhere in between active and passive, where you're generating a lot of different rules and you're doing a mix between medium to long-term investing and extracting the information and the performance out of the market that way. Floating between the two different styles, there's nothing wrong with that. It actually is good. Once you have enough skills, once you have enough information and techniques, you can use the strategies that work for you in different market conditions. And that's probably something that I would recommend as well. So now that you know the difference between these two different investing styles, you'll be able to use the right one in the right market conditions, hopefully, but this is just the beginning. We're going to be expanding on these in the Investing Masterclass, where I actually tell you how to utilize these two different techniques in a very detailed and sophisticated manner. All right, I'll see you in the next video.